Well, I guess I couldn't put this one off any longer. I should have seen this coming. Hey guys, it's Kevin again, my review for the final epic rant of 2020, even though it is, of course, a new year. I figured that I might as well finally put a review for this film out. I haven't really done a lot of epic rants this year, and so I just felt like I needed to do one more before the year ended, and I also felt like there was just no possible way that if I wanted to make an accurate worst list, that I could go through said worst list without viewing this film, even though I really didn't want to. I watched it anyway. That, of course, is for the next masterpiece from Daniel Farrands, of course, being the murder of Nicole Brown Simpson. And look, I mean, I don't even really need to say what this film is about, because it's basically the same thing as The Haunting of Sharon Tate. It is Nicole Brown Simpson, the days before her death, but there's a bit of a twist this time around. Instead of it being a what-if scenario like in Haunting of Sharon Tate, this time Farrands is trying to present a likely scenario that could have, like a scenario that he thinks could have actually happened. He has this serial killer character who was of course, everyone in this movie was real, and that just like in his previous film. It's basically, it was this serial killer that was out there. His name, of course, was Glenn Edward Rogers, and the film is what happened when these two ended up becoming entangled, and if he could have potentially played a role in her death and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, so it's basically the same thing as the last film. You can imagine going into this, though, just knowing how horribly offensive and disgusting his previous film was, and the fact that he really was just trying to exploit off of a tragedy like Sharon Tate, that I was really dreading the fuck out of this film, because why would you ever want to do this again? I just don't understand it. Like, doing it once, okay, I get it. It was a big misstep. It was very poorly handled. It was a very, it was just a very badly made film that was very misinformed and things like that, and, I understand that, but doing it again, I don't get what the benefit is here, so I put this off all year long. I tried to get my friends to watch it, because there was no way in hell that I was going to watch this alone. I needed other people to watch this with me, and it didn't happen until literally a couple days ago. We finally sat down and watched it, and I gotta be honest, I legitimately didn't think it could get worse after Haunting of Sharon Tate, and it did. I actually do think this movie is worse than Sharon Tate overall. The murder of Nicole Brown Simpson is a colossal failure in pretty much every single aspect, and not only is it a failure, it is truly one of the most offensive and, I think, reprehensible films that I think I've truly ever seen. I mean, everything about this film is so disgusting and so vile, and just something that I can't believe actually exists. But we're just getting into right now. I mean, starting off with the cast here, and again, very similar to his last film. I don't know what it is with Daniel Farrands. Actually, I do know. It's probably the fact that, nobody, you look at this concept and you'd be like, why would anyone want to be involved with this? So the only actors that he can find are probably the worst possible actors for these roles. Not a single actor fits their role here. Not a single actor is convincing. But let's talk about Mena Suvari, an actress that I used to like quite a bit. You watch her in American Beauty, and you watch her in like a couple other films, and you think, okay, she actually has a real big success. She actually seems to have a very bright future ahead of her. But since then, she really has not done anything that great. I mean, she's had, like, a role. I know she had, like, that show American Woman. I know she was in that, but I heard that wasn't really that great. She had, like, one episode in American Horror Story Apocalypse, but, like, aside from that, there has really been nothing for her. There's been nothing noteworthy for her to do, and unfortunately, this is no different. This is perhaps her worst role yet, and it's not just because she's miscast. The entire film, she just seems so fucking confused as to how she's supposed to feel. There's barely any emotion on her face. There's barely any, there's barely any ability whatsoever. She just seems like a deer in the headlights throughout this entire movie, and it is just so hard to watch throughout this entire film. The lines of dialogue that she's saying, she seems like she is physically cringing at. It does not seem like she wants to be here anyway, and I can't can't necessarily blame her for that, but it doesn't excuse the fact that her performance in this is fucking garbage, and she's horrible in the role, and I don't know if it's worse than Hilary Duff's performance. It might be, because at least with Hilary Duff, I got the sense that, like, she seemed into this. It just was a really bad performance on her end. Here, Suvari seems like she wants nothing to do with anything that is going on in this film, and it just is not working at all. She's either, like, she's either doing too little or she's doing too much. There really is no in between, and it really just hurts her altogether. I just really hated her in this movie, and again, I hope that she does better roles, but this is definitely not it for her at all. Nick Stahl in this movie, though, holy shit. I mean, he is on another level of terrible. He's playing this serial killer that, first of all, just seems so cartoony and so one-note, and the second that he enters the house, it's like, yeah, this guy is not a good guy. There's nothing charismatic about him. There's nothing that really makes you, like, understand why someone would be lured by this guy's, presence. Why would someone be manipulated by him? He seems so disturbed. He seems so, just unpleasant to be around, and again, I don't know if it's because Nick Stahl was, like, generally not in the mood to do this, but at the same time, he came out of retirement to do this movie. Like, Nick Stahl has not done a film in years, so, like, clearly he had some kind of passion. Clearly he saw something in this script and went, this should be the one that I actually take on. And for some reason, he did this, and I just don't know why. I have no idea why he decided to do this. I have no idea what drew him to this script, but he is just truly awful here. The worst performance in the whole movie, though, might just be Taryn Manning, who is playing Faye Resnick. I don't know who told her to do this, but, like, her entire line delivery just sounds like she's drunk. Every single line. And it's not even the sense where it feels like Faye Resnick is drunk. It feels like Manning herself is drunk. Like, it feels like she consumed a bunch of alcohol. She went on set, maybe she was a little bit buzzed, but she kept drinking excessively, and this is what her performance turned out to be as a result. It's very slurred, it's very, it's very, like, again, it's very slurred, it's very monotone in that way, and it just isn't very convincing at all. And I do like Taryn Manning as an actress, but oh my god, she is just terrible here. Not to mention, like, the awful wig that she's wearing in this movie. I mean, she's just giving such a horrifically bad performance, and she might just be the worst out of everyone in this film. Every time she came on screen, the movie was already terrible, but every time she came on, it just got worse and worse and worse for me, and I hated every single thing that she was doing in this movie, and especially the fact that, like, she's supposed to be, like, the best friend of Nicole. You're never convinced that that's actually the case. It feels like Manning is just, like, over this, like, she's just kind of drinking her sorrows away. She's like, oh, I took this role, I don't want to be here, so just glug glug glug, and yeah, that's what it seems like to me. It legitimately seems like she was, like, drinking on set, and I don't know if she was, but it very much felt that way, because if not, then she's just really bad at playing an alcoholic, because that's what it kind of seemed like. So yeah, I just thought she was terrible here. Everyone really is bad. Drew Roy as Ron Goldman is terrible. Agnes Bruckner as Kris Jenner, it seems like she's tired throughout this movie. Like, it seems like she was, like, half asleep when she did this role, and it just is not working at all. And then the one thing you haven't really noticed, though, is I haven't really mentioned O.J. Simpson. He's not really, in there much, and he really is not in this movie all that much. Gene Freeman, who plays him, though, I mean, he has, like, one scene of dialogue, and it's so unconvincing. All the acting in this film is terrible. Nobody does a good job in this movie at all. I truly thought everyone was just terrible in this film. But getting to the directing here, that's what we really need to talk about when it comes to this movie, because Daniel Farrands' directing, I don't know what he's trying to do. I don't know what his, I don't know what his purpose is here. What are you trying to get out of this film other than just having people like me be upset by it? Is that what you're trying to do? Are you just trying to, like, upset us? Because if that's what your goal is, like, you're doing an excellent job at that, man, and you should stop doing it regardless, but, like, I guess continue it because you're pissing all of us off. And The thing with his directing here, though, is that in Haunting of Sharon Tate, it basically is the same thing as that film, where he is taking a real-life tragedy, but instead, this time around, like I said, he's not trying to present it as a what-if scenario, like, what if this happened? He's actually trying to, like, make this feel like this could have actually been what happened, and it's so shamefully directed in that way. It seems like he has no idea how he wants to tell this story, though. It seems like he had no thought put into it. It was just one idea that he had. It very much feels like Haunting of Sharon Tate happened. He's like, all right, what can I do next? Nicole Brown Simpson, there we go. Like, it feels like he shot it back to back in that way, because there is no direction throughout this entire movie. You have no idea throughout the entire film of where it's actually going to go, because very little is happening in terms of the story. And what does that sound like? Sharon Tate, similar to how that film took forever for anything to fucking happen. Same with Nicole Brown Simpson. It takes forever for anything to actually go down, and then when it does, it's just so irresponsibly handled. And again, it really is due to Farrands directing that makes it that way, and it just, everything about his directing here, nothing works. The horror stuff as well, this should never be portrayed in a horror type manner. Yes, what happened to Nicole Brown Simpson was horrific, but the way that he tries to present it as almost like a slasher film, I think is truly disgusting, and I just don't understand why he continues to do this. I don't understand what he's getting out of this. It just doesn't really make any sense to me. The screenplay certainly doesn't help this film either. I think this film has some truly awful dialogue throughout the entire movie, which we'll get into in a little bit, but the story itself, again, it's just so bare bones. I mean, sure, I told you what this film is really about, but what is going on with these characters? Really nothing. I mean, Nicole Brown Simpson especially, there's really nothing to latch onto with her. She talks about how, like, you know, she's trying to get custody of her kids because OJ is, like, such a bad husband in that way, and that, you know, she really wants nothing to do with him, and that it's just not a very happy, healthy type relationship. But we're just told things. We're never actually shown anything, and besides that, there's nothing for her to really do in this movie. We see her just kind of like walk around, we see her interact with certain characters, but there's nothing to her as a character. There's no arc that she's going through. There's nothing setting up what's going to happen. I mean, yeah, it beats you over the head with the fact that she's going to die soon, but, like, aside from that, there is nothing to her character in this movie, and it is just really horrible the way they do that, especially because the film is supposedly trying to, like, honor her legacy. It does not do a good job with that at all. It doesn't seem like Daniel Farrands, like, cares much about Nicole Brown Simpson, which, I mean, I'm not surprised about, because why would he make a movie like this if you did care about the person that was killed? Like, why would you want to do that? But it's clear, especially, that, like, there's a way to do it, like, so it didn't seem so shameful, and it very much does seem shameful because of it, because it just seems like he has zero care for the person that he's actually telling a story about. And when it comes to the other characters, I mean, forget about it. There's, like, nothing for them. Nick Stahl, for example, Glenn Edward Rogers, like the serial killer in this movie, the only things we know about him is that he seems legitimately insane and that he clearly has some kind of, like, split personality, and that's never fully explained what's going on there. You know, why is Nicole so, why is Nicole so, like, obsessed with it? Well, she's not, like, obsessed with him, but, like, why does Nicole want anything to do with him? Why do they have these interactions throughout the movie? Again, none of that is really explained, and you just don't understand what they're trying to do in terms of the screenplay here. But then you also go to the dialogue, which is so offensive in that way. I mean, there is legitimately a line where Kris Jenner mentions Bruce once, and she talks about how, oh, he hasn't shown up in a while. It's a real drag. Literally, that's a line in this movie. I'm not joking. That is literally something that she ends up saying, and it's like, come on. I mean, can you just read the room for a second? Just look at the script. Does this seem like something that people are actually going to want to hear in 2020? Like, come on. That's really just common sense, I feel like, and there were so many things that easily they could have fixed, and they just chose not to in terms of the dialogue. Like, they make it so incredibly obvious that Nicole is going to die, but they also, for some reason, Farrands thinks this is a good idea, kind of make it seem like it's her fault. Like, this is going to happen to her. Like, she deserves what's coming. And it's absolutely disgusting that they decide to go about it that way. They talk a lot about how Nicole is, like, sleeping with all these different men and how she enjoys, like, the sexual pleasure she gets from them. And it's just, it's so disgusting the way the film goes about it. It's very misogynistic, and I also think it's kind of racist, because if you've noticed, this film doesn't really involve OJ that much. I mean, the most we get of him is one scene where she's watching her kids perform in the show. OJ comes up, they have this heated argument, and that's really the full extent of it. There's nothing else for him to do here, because again, it's almost like Farrands is trying to remove OJ from the equation entirely and be like, yeah, OJ had nothing to do with this, but the film doesn't provide sufficient enough evidence to tell us, like, how this could really happen. The scenario that occurs in this film, it doesn't even really make sense. I mean, it goes down, and it's so disgusting, the way that he goes about it. It's so grotesque and just vile. But then the film, similar to Haunting of Sharon Tate, it does all of these like documentary type things where it takes you back to the OJ trial and it takes you back to news reports of Nicole's death, and everything that they're saying does not align with what Farrands just set up. It almost feels like what Farrands ended up doing actually backfired. Like, he realized, oh shit, there's actually no way for me to prove this, and the evidence that we get at the end of the film, it contradicts everything that this film is trying to say. So again, it's just that much more of a failure in that way, because he can't even do that. He can't even try to convince us that, like, something like this could happen. He can't even try to persuade us that, like, this is a likely scenario. He is not convincing at all with that, and there's just so many things that don't work when it comes to this screenplay. It's an absolute just mess of a film. It's such a misfire. It has some of the worst dialogue I've heard in a very long time. Just absolute garbage in terms of the screenplay. Also, I forgot to say, the horror element. I know I'm kind of like rambling, but like, this film is very jumbled as it is, so it kind of makes sense to go about it that way. The horror element of this film, I think, is possibly even worse than it was in Sharon Tate, because Sharon Tate, it already like didn't really have a place in there at all. But here, there's this weird thing throughout the movie where there's like this like ghostly figure that's like following Nicole throughout the whole film, and we don't really understand what that's supposed to represent, what that's really about. There are scenes where she'll have these like very violent like nightmares, but they feel like blatant ripoffs of like other horror films, and I don't know what he's trying to do here. I don't know what his intention is, but every intention that I think of is a negative one. So I can't think of any good reason why you would decide to do this. I just can't. I can't think of anything that would cause you to go in this direction. I can't think of anything that would cause you to direct the film like this. I can't get inside his head, because I don't want to get inside his head. I don't want to think about what Farrands was trying to do with this movie, because everything that he does is fucking disgusting, and I want absolutely nothing to do with it. So yeah, the screenplay, it's just an absolute mess from start to finish. The cinematography, though, in this film, once again, is just horrible here. There's so many scenes that are just so badly filmed. The cinematography itself, there are a lot of things just kind of happen out of nowhere. There's also this really annoying thing that they do where almost every single time there's a scene change, they have to spell out like what exactly the day is, what exactly the time is, and sometimes it's in a matter of just like one day that's passed, and it's like, we're not that stupid. You don't need to keep like holding our hand and telling us like when the day is, and I just don't understand why Farrands decides to take this approach. I've said it before, if you're gonna do this, just make a fucking documentary. I don't understand why he decides to go about it this way, because it feels like he has zero narrative here. Just make a documentary, and I feel like this could turn out so much better if he wanted to do it that way. And certainly don't make it like an actual horror film, because that definitely does hurt it for sure. But yeah, just cinematography here is terrible. The whole thing kind of looks like a Lifetime movie, but in dimmer grayscale type cinematography, and it's just really ugly to look at. So not a fan of the cinematography cinematography at all here. The score is also horrible. It's so overly done. There's one part of it that blatantly sounds like a ripoff of The Leftovers, and I'm not just saying that because I adore The Leftovers so much and it's my favorite show, but like, it literally sounds like beat for beat the same thing as like a certain theme in The Leftovers, and I was like, what is going on here? What is this score? It's so badly handled throughout this entire movie, and I really hate the score a lot here. The editing here is terrible. The film's only 80 minutes long, and it just moves at such a snail's pace. It takes forever for anything to happen in this movie, and then finally when something happens, it really just kind of like rushes through all of it, and then they realize, oh shit, that we still have like 10 minutes of movie to go, so let's just implement all this like footage that again debunks everything that Farrands is trying to set up. So yeah, Murder Nicole Brown Simpson, it's an absolute disaster from start to finish. There's not a single thing in this film that's convincing. There's not a single thing in this film that actually does work. It's a film that really is just going to confuse you more and more as to what Farrands' true intentions really are. I don't understand why he continues to keep making these kind of movies. I do think that murder cases are generally fascinating. I think there are some that you could really unpack and think like, how did this occur? You know, who could have done this? There's a lot of unsolved mysteries in that way, but doing it in the way that he is, this is not the way to go about it. This is extremely shameful. This is extremely disgusting, and I really hope he just stops. I really hope the train stops here. I don't think it's going to, but I really do hope the train stops here, because everything about this feels like it's almost a carbon copy of Sharon Tate, except worse, because clearly Farrands is trying to make some kind of point here, but that point is completely devoid and basically just masked by such horrible directing, such a ridiculous and just horribly delivered screenplay, some terrible performances, just everything about the murder of Nicole Brown Simpson just completely falls apart in every single way. It basically is the film that 2020 deserves in that way, because of just how terrible it truly is. This is truly one of the worst films that I've seen in a very long time, and I'm definitely going to give it an F. Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you! Oh my god. I mean, look, I had to review this eventually. There was no way that I was going to put it off any further, but seriously, I can't believe that this film exists. I can't believe that Farrands is continuing to do this shit, and I can't believe that, like, you know, he made the same exact kind of movie, like, back to back. I don't know how he decided to go about that here, but it's even worse than it was last time. And yeah, but that's really it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Look forward, because my worst movies of 2020 list will be coming very soon. I also do have one more catch-up review before I put out that list, so look forward to that. We'll see you guys in my next video, which I promise will be for something better than this, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.